a theater individual. I was a singer, dancer, actress for almost 25 years and loved that career. It was something I thrived in. I did it here domestically, in Manhattan, over in Europe. I've had a thriving, fantastic theater career. And then my husband and I decided to buy an 18-acre ranch up about an hour and a half north of Houston. Wow. So now to come in for rehearsals and auditions and shows was a total pain in the tuchus. So I said I can either get an apartment in the city and basically live separate from my husband, basically, or I can find a career that lets me be creative from the middle of the same Houston National Forest. Writing fit the bill. So my father was an editor, and they're just single page. I'm sorry, guys, I should have told you single front.
That's also right.
Oh, you can have, yes. So some of them I printed out in red, and it shouldn't be. It was an error. So if you want to keep a red one, though, that's totally up to you.
You said Virgo. I thought you were married.
Oh yeah, but you in the Playboy article. I see a trend here starting. Yeah, if anybody else needs another one, I've got more. So basically I need a new career. So boom, I'm in the National Forest. My husband says, honey, your eye is twitching. We need to find you a creative outlet before you explode. And writing just seemed natural for me. So
How long ago was that?
that was in 2015. So yep. So that was in May of 2015 we moved. In the fall of 2015 was when my husband was like, gardening is great, working with the rescue horses is great, but you got to get to doing something creative or you're going to explode. So in October I said, well, what can I do that has a big return financially, because I don't have any capital to start a writing business. I didn't have, like a fund or anything. So I'm like, so how do I start this? So magazine article writing, really, it pays really well. It pays immediate. The articles are no longer than on average 2,000 words. I can churn out, even when I was a young writer, in the beginning of this, I could churn out 2,000 words in 2 days easy. I love researching. And so magazine article writing, I was like, and you don't really have to have experience. There are a lot of magazines that'll take a fresh, brand new, never written a magazine article before writer, and if you have a good pitch and they like you, you have a high probability of getting your article out there. And so it seemed like a win-win for me, so I went after it in October of 2015. Within 2 months, I'd sold 12 magazine articles already. Right. So I was like, okay, there is something to this. And so that was kind of how I got into it. Since then, I have also tackled poetry. I have a poetry collection published, and I've got poems published in numerous magazines and journals. I've written award-winning short stories that are all out there now. I'm working on my first novel and novella that are hopefully, finding an agent for them in 2020. But magazine writing is what has basically paid, it's been the bread and butter to pay for my writing career, my freelance writing career, to this point. So for me, while these other things are stellar, and I definitely am working in all these other genres of writing, magazine article writing is where it's at, as far as I'm concerned, to financially support the creative side.
How much do you get for an article?
It varies. Sometimes, depends if it comes, and this is, later on we might talk about this a bit, but anywhere from, like, for an online, so an article that's only going to be published online, the average is about $40 for a, 1,000-word article. I've got one of my regulars I work for that they're print articles that I get paid $195 an article for a 15,000-word to 1,500-word article, and it's like fluff stuff. So it's like articles about, how to draw hummingbirds to your yard, or when to plant fruit trees in, Houston, or, exciting things to do in Houston. And so they're fun, fluff, coffee table pieces. But $195 for an article that typically, including research, including writing the pitch, submitting the pitch, getting accepted, the research and the writing of the article, really, I am not joking, guys, takes me all told 3 hours. Wow. So, to me, that's a really good return, on my word for word.
You've got no other costs. You're not driving. You're not paying for an office. You've got
Nope. You have your so if you're not coming to a coffee shop or somewhere that has free Wi-Fi, you've got your...
It's not painful work.
Right, you've got your setup materials, but aside from that, there's no other overhead. There's no... And I'm a part-time... I used to be a professional photographer as well. So if I do the photography for an article as well, then I get paid even more. So I definitely pitch that when it's something I've had a number of articles, that they paid me to do the photography as well, so it was like an even better bonus. So anyway, so that's how I got into magazine writing. That's why I'm a huge advocate of nonfiction. And I will say up front, there's a difference between literary magazines and journals and nonfiction magazines, right? So literary journals and magazines, so you'll still hear them called magazines, but it's literary work. It's poetry, short stories, that kind of thing. So what we're going to talk about today is really a focus on the nonfiction magazine article writing. And but if you want to talk about lit journals and that kind of thing down the road, we can at another time. So okay, you've got your hand up. So this is an actual course that I teach other places as a 3-hour course. So we're condensing down, right? So the red one that you have is we're going to cover the red stuff and not the black stuff today. Or the ones, on these you'll see in italicized sections, we're skipping those because we just don't have time to do those. Do you want one, Sean?
Oh no, I got one.
Oh, you
I
got
just was seeing if this was different.
Yeah, his is
All
red.
Of his red is the same.
Yeah, and all the wording is the same. It's just that it was how I originally was marking them to know for myself what I was going to do today and what I wasn't. So yeah, at the top of your page, I didn't even really say my name. I'm Jody Townsley Morse, also known as JT Morse in the writing world. Some of my byline on some of my work is Jody T Morse, and some of it is JT Morse. I'm trying to transition everything to JT Morse. Both my fiction work and my nonfiction. For years, I've been doing my nonfiction as Jody T Morse. And then when I got into fiction writing, unfortunately, there's already a writer named Jody Morse out there publishing YA fiction really popularly. So I didn't want us to be competing on an SEO Google search.
Morse like Morse code?
Morse like Morse code, yep. And so I'm shifting everything to JT Morse. So the only thing I'm competing with is a battleship. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory that I'm not a battleship. So, or maybe it's a metaphor, I don't know. But so that's kind of the scoop there. But you'll find work from me published under about 3 different pen names, because over the years I've tried to find other pen names and they just didn't. I'd publish a handful of things under that name and go, nah, it's not really working for me, and can it? So it's been an interesting journey, but. So that's pretty much it. We're gonna just plow through this stuff. We're gonna do some hands-on stuff. And then I'm gonna do some lecturing stuff, and we're just gonna roll with it. If you have questions, feel free to flag me. But some of them I may say to you, can you hang that till the end and let us, keep rolling, because I am trying to pack so much into an hour. So, who can be a magazine writer? Everybody put your hand up. Anybody. But I will say these characteristics that I've listed here help. So enjoying researching and fact-checking. You don't have to enjoy that part, but depending what kind of articles you're writing, there's going to be some kind of research and fact-checking involved, typically. That you can meet a deadline and write to someone else's timing. One of the negatives that a lot of fiction writers that are converting into nonfiction writers and magazine writers struggle with is you have a hard, set, fast deadline. You have that deadline because the art director needs to get your words so they can put it with pictures and get it into the publication. So when the editor says your article is due to be in full, ready to roll by November 10th, it better be in their inbox or on their desk by November 10th. So if deadlines are hard for you, if you're one of those people who can't write unless you're feeling the vibe, or this might be tough for, that may be something you need to work on, because it is a time-based. Now, some magazines, I will say, I've got a couple that I write for that give me a 3-month window. Wow. Right. So I've got plenty of time to find the vibe, right? Some of them, it's much quicker turnaround. Some of them want it in, a week to 10 days. So on those particular ones, I really have to look at my schedule book and say, okay, can I make this happen? But that's something that helps. Keeping it brief but still engaging. So if you are a Faulkner-esque writer who likes to write a sentence that's 3 pages long, magazine article writing is going to be tough for you. Learning to keep it brief but also still engage your readership is a skill that, if you already have that or you're working on it, will be helpful. Following directions to a T. If you like to get a little verbose and run off the track and out the door and out of the box, there will be magazines that will be open to you. Playboy may take your soliloquy from a pair of panties. However, most magazines are, there are certain parameters that they need you to write it to this length, or they need you to write it to this particular type of an audience. The demographic of our magazine is 40 to 60-year-old women in the Midwest. They're not going to get it if you're writing about crazy stuff from California, because that's not where they live and that's not what they do and what they know. So writing to a T is helpful. Knowing the basics of formatting and editing styles. So I've listed down here APA, CMS, CSE, MLA, APS, CBE. These are all styles or guidebooks that tell us things like when you write an address in a story, we want the numbers as numericals, but we want the words written as, the words. We don't want you to shorten avenue to Ave, we want it written out. Or we want it shortened to Ave with a period or without. These are all stylistic choices that are in these style guides, and each magazine will have one that they prefer to use. Now, some of the magazines are awesome, and they have these great editors, style editors, who will convert your piece. You don't have to worry about it. You write they'll fix those things to match their style. However, there are a lot of magazines that will not do that hand-holding for you. And when they say we want this written in MLA or APA, whatever, you need to know how to do that style. So don't be scared of that. Don't run out and buy every style guide on the market until you need it. And so just be aware of that occurs, that is an element of magazine article writing that you don't typically have in fiction writing.
Do you read through your style guide like all the way through?
No, so I don't have any of them memorized. I do the magazines that I do write for that have specific style guides they want, like Chicago Style or something. I have those manuals on my shelf and I will reference them as needed, but it's not like I have it memorized. I will, after I've written my piece, then I'll go back and edit it to match that style guide. Typically, that's how I work personally. And sometimes I'll bounce off the editor, hey, how tight are you guys on this? Most of my folks I've written for years, so I know, they're pretty flexible. They say this on their website, but they're, submission website, but they're not really that picky about it. Some of them, I've had one come back, send it back to me and say, there were too many errors, stylistic errors in it, can you redo it for us and resend it? And so that happens sometimes too, but don't go out and memorize them all. If you want to take a whole course on style guide, you can. I don't think it's worth your time or your money to do that personally. Yeah, go for it.
So for the style guides, a lot of times you're going to be looking at APA and CMS. The other ones are more nuanced, but you can find a lot of stuff on the Purdue website as far as the AMA goes.
That's right.
And then CMS Talk is for the Chicago Manual Style, which is separated from them, and that has a lot of information on I call it CMOS, but there's not like a standard. It's just funny. CMS Talk, I think it's .org. TALK. But what she's talking about, those little things, it's almost like when you were in college and it's like, okay, how do you cite your references? And there's always these cheat sheets that show you how. So unless you're,
And a lot of the magazines will send you the cheat sheets. So I've got a couple of magazines I write for that actually, when I started writing for them, sent me an email with, hey, these are the details that, it was almost like an outline of, these are the details that are important to us that need to follow these rules. But so they actually provided me the Cliff Notes version or the cheat sheet for it. So, and that's never a bad question to ask. But if you read a submission, if you have a magazine you want to submit to, and on their submission guideline they say this needs to be written in Chicago or whatever APA, whichever style, and you don't know that style, don't panic. Fake it till you make it. Fake it in your pitch as best you can, and then learn it as you go. Is my personal opinion. So do with that what you will, but don't let it scare you. It's just something to be aware of that exists in this world of writing. What magazines and topics? So I want you guys to all get a piece of paper. If you don't have paper, I have happy little white paper here, because we're gonna do a little activity. Sorry, I'm a hands-on kind of girl. So I'm gonna lecture, but we're also gonna do a little fun deal here. So on your paper, which I handed them all to you guys, I want you to make a lovely quadrant. And you can do this on your laptop or on a piece of regular paper you've got, whatever you want to do. Can you guys cycle those plain sheets down? Thank you. So you're going to make yourself a happy little quadrant, just a little crossy deal. And I want to see how he does this while he's eating. That's impressive.
You're doing my mind.
No, you're doing it in your mind. You can totally do it in your mind. Totally do it in your mind. Pictionary. Yes, this is not Pictionary. I'm a horrible visual artist. So I can sing, I can dance, I can write, but I can't draw at the same time. So we're going to put words in these boxes, luckily. Yeah, go for it. So in the upper left quadrant, so up here, or in any quadrant you want to put it in, really, I want you to write what magazines you've ever read. So if you ever read an article in National Geographic, write it in this box. If you have read a lot of Playboy, put it in this box. If you have read Highlights magazine when you were a kid, put it in this box. I don't care. Any Cat Fancy, put it in the box. So any magazines that you can remember reading at all. I will even take it if you read the cover story and the grocery store line. And if you can't remember the exact name, but you know that it was something about knitting, just write knitting magazine. You don't need the specific title of the magazine necessarily for this activity. This is just kind of to gauge where we are magazine-wise. And now I want you to put a little star or an indicator of some kind beside the ones that you've read repeatedly or recently. So any of these magazines that you have read, let's say in the past 3 months, or that you read more than once. You know, you actually either subscribed to it or you picked up multiple copies. Put a little asterisk or a little mark next to those just so you know that those are ones that you repeatedly went back to or subscribed to, something like that. In the second quadrant, or a different quadrant, pick another one, you're going to write magazines that you would like to read. So again, this can be magazines that you've seen in the brochure but you never really picked it up, or a type of magazine. So if there's a genre, so you want to read Horse and Hound, but you've never picked up a copy, you never really had a review, you know, like the idea of farm-to-table foods, but you've never read a magazine on it. Some kind of magazine that you would like to read, but you've just never really done it for whatever reason. Health and fitness magazines, sports magazines, I don't know, whatever, foodie magazines. You know, again, you don't have to know an exact title, just the general type of magazine you would like to read. This is in another quadrant. So in a second quadrant, whichever one you want to pick, that's where we are now writing what magazines you would like to read or what types of magazines you'd like to read. Again, we'll be through this activity in just a minute. So, no, which is okay. That's good. That's what we're kind of learning now. So no, there's no such thing as a terrible magazine reader. All right, in a third quadrant, so pick whichever little black corner quadrant you want to use. I want you to write what you like to do. I want you to write hobbies, interests, expertise you have. If you have a college degree and it was in anything, even if you haven't used it since 1982, whatever. Anything that you like to do in this third quadrant of your choosing. What are things that you are interested in? What makes you happy? What makes you get out of bed in the morning? Jot a few things in there. We all should be putting crepes on that list. Crepe shout out.
That was the first thing.
I'm sorry, so in the first...
That was the first thing.
That was the first thing you wrote down? Of course it was.
Crepe and Fancy, is that a magazine? Crepe and Fancy?
It should be if it's not, yeah.
Full of crepe.
Well, yeah, exactly. All right, in the last quadrant, you're going to write down article ideas and possible magazines to pitch them to. So what you're going to do is look at your other 3 boxes. In these 3 boxes, you have potential magazines you might want to write for. In that first quadrant that we made of things that you've read, especially the ones with stars beside them, if you enjoy reading that magazine, you might enjoy writing for that magazine. In your category of things that you like to do, right there, you've got magazine article topics. You've got a whole list of them right there, right? So, and there will be a magazine that will publish an article about underwater basket weaving. We have to find it, but it does exist, okay? So in this 4th quadrant, I want you to write and this is creative. There's no right or wrong, but take some of those other 3 quadrants, magazine that you want to write for, what kind of article do you think they would like? You've got gardening on here. Great, you'd like to write an article for them about blackberry growing. I don't know. But I want you to just a little bit of idea generation going on here. So that's really, yeah. And so now what you have to take home with you assuming you don't have magazine writer block, is a couple of ideas for where to start. So as soon as you get home today, go, can I plunk out 500 words about growing when you can't have a something?
When you don't have a green thumb.
Thank goodness we have typing these days. When you don't have a green thumb. Right. So she's going to write an article about, when you don't naturally have a green thumb, can you still be a gardener? Yes, you can, madam. And you're going to research how to do it. Container gardening, silk plants. There you go. What about hard succulents that you can't kill unless you overwater them, right? So, what you did, yeah. All right. So basically what we're the basic point I want to make for you guys with this is everybody can be a magazine article writer because there's something you are interested in that other people will also be interested in too. And that magazines are interested in paying you to write an article about, right? So if you are obsessed with, I write, Matthew McConaughey, you write an article on that man. Yeah? Somebody, Celebrity Magazine, wants to read that article, right? Need somebody to write it. So basically, that's a silly little activity, but it's something just to show you guys, if you're not a magazine reader, if you literally had one in that first box of a row of magazines, that you've ever read, I would suggest, magazines, I suggest you start reading magazines. Just, and the great thing about magazines these days is there are online versions, so it's not like you have to necessarily buy a print subscription or, but next time you're in the grocery store or in Target or in Barnes & Noble or wherever, go through the magazine section and just look at what's out there magazine-wise. And you'd be incredibly surprised at the diversity and the options that are out there. And people say, there are some people that say newspaper and magazine are dying art forms. They still exist. I write for them all the time, and they pay really well. And even if the print versions of them start phasing out, there will be online. Basically, it's being, not replaced, it's being adjuncted by blogging and online magazines, e-zines, So there's always going to be a need for people to write articles about all kinds of stuff from A to Z. So that is not going to go away anytime soon.
Everyone here should know where the term blog came from, right? No?
Tell us. Web blog. So a blog is video blog. So
It's a combination of
web
captain
blog.
blog, 2432
There we go.
web blog. No, you don't do that.
No?
I'm going to blame that I'm too young. No. Not that I am.
Let me
All
throw
right.
it out there as well. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, go for it, sir.
The thing of writing down magazines, I had this thing of, I have read blogs basically on my that might or might not have a print edition. I'm not even sure that are well put together and have different people writing for them. So as it goes along, and I'm thinking, well, who could I even pitch something to?
Yeah.
The breadth of that is bigger. They might not pay.
So that, you're right. I mean, so when you asked about pay earlier, there are still a lot of people out there who, we're giving you exposure. Do not. I mean, it's up to you. We all have to earn our stripes somehow, whether it is that you went to college and got your MFA, whether you, whatever you are doing. But I'm just going to tell you guys, I went straight into paid work without anything. I did not pull my dues. I did not work for exposure. I did not any of that stuff. Can you do that? Sure. Should you do that? Maybe. But don't fall into that necessarily, but because there are a lot of places out there who don't pay. Now, some of them, there's a trade-off. So I have written some articles for Natural Awakenings magazine that didn't pay me, but what it did was gave me free advertising. So the way they trade off is, if you want to advertise something, so I had some classes I was teaching, and if I wanted to advertise, it was going to cost me $150 for a half-page article or a half-page ad. But if I wrote an article about the subject I was teaching, they didn't charge me for that, but I didn't get paid for that. So it was like a scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. I do have one magazine that when I started with that magazine was not paying at the time, but it's because it's a beautiful art magazine, and I love the editor dearly, and I knew he had the prowess and the impetus and the professionalism that this would start churning out pay down the road. So for me, it was an okay investment. because I knew this was, and I got to interview awesome people like the mayor and Joanna Herring and some great artists here locally in Houston. But for me, I was willing to do that. However, yeah, like Sean said, just pay attention. You know, when you're looking at pitching to a magazine, yeah, if they don't pay, you know,
Run away.
you want to. Well, I mean, you don't have to run away, but consider what you are giving away your time and your talent for free. Is that?
Wouldn't a couple of them be good?
If you feel like you need a couple of them to get your feet under you, to get grounded, then go for it. My experience was I didn't need to do that to make it happen. However, you know, I can be kind of pushy, so I know anything. So yeah, so it's up to you. But
I was looking into some of those websites that you can get your feet wet in, like Fiverr and Upwork, and they have terrible reviews from some people. But what I found is not everybody on there is just paying $5. There are lots of people on there that are, you know, paying a very good wage.
right.
So
Yeah,
don't
so it varies.
not look at that.
Right.
People
Yeah.
are there.
For me, my experience has been magazine article writing pays really well, and so I'm gonna
And
tell it.
there are people wanting magazine articles through those websites. I was shocked.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll talk about some resources of where to find and how to submit, but yeah. All right, we're gonna move on. So we've done who, what, now we're to when. When should you pitch and write your article? So magazine writing is not a evergreen all the time kind of thing like fiction writing is, right? Fiction writing, you can write a poem or a story at any point during the year and it doesn't matter. Magazine article writing, there are some articles which are evergreen articles. So if you write an article about I don't know, flights from Malaysia to Africa, those flights are probably going to exist for a long time. Now the details in it will change possibly, but it's an evergreen article. But there are articles that are not year-round, what we call evergreen articles, that are based on submission periods. So some magazines only have open submission periods at certain windows of the year. Some of them have year-round submissions. So you want to check on that. So when you find a magazine you want to write for, you'll go to the submission page and look and see, okay, do they only accept pitches during this window of time, or are they always open to pitches? The other thing is invitation only. So some magazines are invitation only for pitches. So it'll say it clearly on their website or in the masthead of the magazine that we only take writers by invitation only. But yeah, so those do exist. But most magazines are not like that. Most magazines, anybody can pitch them a story if they like it. And so then as far as your article release times, that's what I got ahead of myself there for a second. Sorry about that. But that's where you've got your evergreen articles, which means it can be published at any time, or season specific. So I wrote an article a while back about Texas Renaissance Festival. Well, obviously that needed to be published either right before the festival opened or right after it closed for it to make sense, right? It didn't, because that runs in the fall, it didn't make any sense to print this article about the Texas Renaissance Festival in January, or in, March. Same with if you write a back to school article. Well, there's no sense, that's going to need to come out, at the end of July, somewhere in August, right? And so those kind of things, there's a window of time. The hummingbird article that I wrote had needed to come out in the spring, right before hummingbird season comes in, or else it didn't make sense. Why are you telling me about hummingbirds in November?
How about write about cicadas?
And what?
Every 13 or 17 years.
I was going to say, that's,
Pretty specialized niche.
It's very specialized. It is very specific, yeah. And then event-related articles. So, like I talked about Texas Renaissance Festival, it's an event-related article. If you write an article on somebody coming to town, well, that article obviously needs to come out either right before they come to town, or it's a review of it, and then it comes out right after they come to town, right? And then the third type of article are what we call editor requested. So, Texas Living Magazine that I write for regularly, Claire, the editor there, will every now and then reach out to those of us who've been writing for the magazine for a while and say, hey guys, we really want to include these topics, articles on these topics in this summer issues. Would anybody be interested in picking these up? Sometimes it's you pitching the idea to them, but there's also, and I love it when they reach out to us and say, hey, or you'll go on someone's website, a magazine's website, and they'll have a list of these are the topics, that we're wanting articles on in 2020. So you want to write to one of those, pitches and see if that gets accepted. So that's when you should pitch and write your article. Where can I find submission calls? So they're all over the place, but these are just some that I wanted to point out to you guys to give you a starting place. Facebook. If you're a Facebooker, I know. Sorry, Tamar. Did you get a copy of the notes? Do you want an outline? Yeah. Let me shift you. Oh, that one's kind of got. Well, you can have a lovely, colorful. Oh, did you get one, Shannon? You got okay. There you go, lovely. Facebook. There is a Facebook group called Binders, full of writing jobs. You do have to apply. You have to submit and ask them to be on it. You can't just willy-nilly jump on there. They are very specific that you do not share what's posted on there outside of the group because they don't want it a free-for-all. These are professional editors looking for professional writers. And so it's a very close-knit type. But if you get in on there, oh my, there are job listings for magazine writers for magazine article writing all the time. So that's a really good resource. Websites of the magazines or printed in the magazines in the masthead. So one of these magazines on your list that you made a little bit ago that you think you might want to write for, go on their website and there will be a tab or something that says submissions. Sometimes it'll be under the contact us tab, but there will be somewhere on there something about how they take writers or when they take pitches, that kind of thing. In magazines, so this is one magazine that I write for. There's an article, or there at the beginning will be a intro from the editor. Oftentimes in those, it'll say, this is where, we'll tell you about how to submit to our magazine. Or sometimes it'll be in the masthead, which the masthead of a magazine typically is your kind of table of contents page. And so sometimes on there it'll give a, hey, this is, how to reach out to us or how to send us your work. Sometimes masthead. Sometimes it'll be in the back. So there will be a rear masthead. So where in the back it'll say down at the bottom, this is how, if you want to write for us, this is who to email or how to reach out to us. This magazine, I will tell you, this is a joy. This particular magazine, we actually get our bios and photos in. That is not normal. But that's one of the joys and perks of this particular magazine. But, so those are places you can look for, find the actual magazine that you think you might want to write for and look at their website or in their copies. Email. There is an email deal called freelancewriting.com. That's the website. But they send you info@freelancewriting.com. Sends me an email once a week with freelance writing jobs. And oftentimes there's at least one or two magazine article options in there. It is free. It doesn't cost you anything. They don't spam the crap out of you. You literally get one a week that tells you about writing jobs. Poets and Writers or other writing magazines and publications has listings in it. There will be a whole classified section in the back of it that gives you job listings and possibilities. And then the best for me are other writers and repeat work. If you get in with a magazine that you like, New at Texas Living or Art Houston, I love the editors of those magazines. And so I continue to write for them because they pay on time, they pay well, they have been good to me. They let me choose really interesting topics that I want to write about, as well as writing some stuff for them that they need written. Once you find a magazine that you like working for, why not stick with it and just do repeat business, there. I mean, why would you not do that? I don't know. But then other writers, I talk to fellow magazine writers that from time to time will say, hey, so-and-so's looking for articles about Irish dancing. I was an Irish dancer for 15 years. So they're like, oh, you should write, you might pitch, to this editor. And, so that helps too. So there we are, and where can you find submissions? We're going to flip over our page, and we are going to, how are we doing on time here? Good. All right. On your paper, you're going to see how to write a successful pitch. Unfortunately, we don't have time today to go into that, but you'll see on there, all of the components that you need, your proposed title, word count, style, subject, deadline, department, summary, yada, yada. A lot of these magazines are going to an online form now. So actually, it's kind of like plug and play. So these elements will be on there and tell you, you just kind of fill in the blank, kind of an idea. As far as the actual pitch, you're going to give a summary, which is going to have a lead and nut graph in it, which again, we don't have time to go into. I'm teaching this workshop on January 25th at Right Space. so if you want to come and get more, yeah, so I know, so you guys are getting, we'll get the other 2 hours of content. So yeah, the place is called Right Space, and January 25th, I think, is when we'll be doing it. It's called Mags to Riches, so the same title that's on the top of this. So if you want to, so for the fuller version where you get to do these things, where you get to go into how to, we'll actually write a pitch together and how to write, the details of how to write a great article. Yeah, we go more into those. This is more like a teaser. This is your little,
We
introduction.
used to do cover letters 100 years ago, so it's not
Cover
the same
letters.
thing as a cover letter.
So a cover letter basically has now become the body of your email. So on any of these places, you're going to submit either to them via they want their pitches via email, or on submittable.com, or which is another place to find jobs, submittable.com. Which I thought was on here somewhere, but I don't know where maybe I didn't put it on here. But those kind of places, they'll have your quote unquote cover letter is the initial email you send to them, or the initial cut and paste space. So those still exist, but not like it still exists, but not like it used to.
Okay.
You're not going to do a whole separate .doc file and attach it to the email. It is going to be the body of your email for most of them. Yeah, but good question though. Used to when we sent everything in the actual mail. What?
I was gonna say
Yeah.
no attachments. Too
So-
many viruses
Right.
and stuff out
So
there.
some
Never send
magazines.
attachments.
Some magazines will have you send your pitch and they'll specifically say in the body of your email. That's why most of these are going to a form actually on their website, so there is no attachment. You're literally going to cut and paste your pitch into a box they have on their website, right? It's going to happen a lot. How to write a great article. Again, I've got all of the types of articles that exist, standard components. Unfortunately, today we just don't have time to go into, but blog, look, as we now know how blog came about. Blog posts are on there. A blog post is not technically a magazine article, but it's magazine article adjacent. I mean, they're typically your blog articles are going to be 500 word-ish, whereas a magazine article is going to be more in the 1500-ish range. But the other beauty about all of this is they're short word. I mean, to me, that's really short word count. Some of you guys may be going like, "Oh my God, I'm a poet. I'm a haiku artist. 500 words. Holy crap! That's 50 haikus or something." But for most people, it's a short. It's a shorter piece, and so there's good and bad to that. The good is if you're a verbose writer, you're gonna have to learn to hack it down and tone it down. If you're a short writer, then you may have to learn to expand a little bit. The blog article writing is a fun place. A lot of magazine article writers will start with a blog on Medium or on your own website. And that's a good place to get your feet wet for free if you want to. But so that you're churning out, stuff. Now, I will say if you do something like that, once an article is published, meaning it has come out anywhere. I don't care if that thing was published in your church's newsletter. Once an article has been published, it is published and no longer viable to be published elsewhere unless that entity or individual says that's okay. So everything needs to be, you can tweak articles. So I've had some folks come to me and say, "Oh, I read your article in Horse and Hound and we want you to basically do the same thing for us, but obviously it needs to be a fresh article because we don't want to plagiarize, we can't just take your article from that magazine and publish it in our stuff." And so then you learn how to kind of tweak and play with your article to, okay, well, I'm going to pull out this paragraph and tweak and change a little bit. But for the most part, once it's published, whether you're paid for it or not, it's dead to anybody else unless it's had a major facelift. So just FYI on that. So yeah, why write nonfiction magazine articles? The number one is change, smiley face. Why? Because compared to other writing forms, for me, it is aside from becoming the next Anne Rice or Stephen King, it is the most financially lucrative for the time that I put in. And like I said, my nonfiction work is what pays for my fiction work at the moment. Eventually, I want to swap that. Eventually, I'd like my novels and novellas to be supporting me financially. And then if I want to write magazine articles on the side, that's great. but there have been a lot of who we know as big name authors or fiction writers who started out as journalists or magazine writers. Elizabeth Gilbert, who's coming to town next week, is a huge, with imprint. The tickets are probably sold out.
They sold out within like an hour.
I got on there
They sold
literally
out
at
within
noon.
an hour.
I'm
So
so
Imprint.
sorry.
Imprint.
Imprint.
Place.
It's an organization that does.
They have an
I
office
have a
over there
bookmark.
near
Yep.
the Neil as well, if you'd like to say
They
hi
do.
and see other
Yeah.
events that they're doing.
And that's it. Then they have a website and they have a newsletter if you want to. Look, she's even got a
go back
bookmark.
with my bookmark. Sorry.
You guys are so cute. But anyway, Elizabeth Gilbert got her start as a magazine article writer. She wrote for a number of magazines. Then she started writing her short story books, and then she came out with Eat, Pray, Love, and it took off and got ridiculous. And then she's written some fiction books. Right, she's Eat, Pray, Love her. And then she's written some fiction, longer fiction works that have come out since then. But it all started for her with magazine articles. And she's just one story of it. There are lots of those.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson the same way. Yep.
Malcolm
Started
Gladwell.
magazine. Who?
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes, Malcolm Gladwell did as well. You're right. Yeah. So
Julianne Kelly.
Julian, any more? Anybody else?
That's
Everyone
me.
raise your hand and say me. Oh, look at you. Oh, there you go. That's how it's going to work for you. Yeah.
Can do that actually. Who has gotten a magazine? Magazine article out?
Yeah, do any of you guys already have a magazine?
Anybody got a magazine article?
That's a couple of things. They do it every day on the workshops as well.
All right, so number 2 on our list is fun and interesting work, people, research, and places. So the thing with magazine article writing is there's a whole breadth of subjects and styles of magazine articles. So I've written interview articles. So I've gotten to interview some very cool people because I got sent to interview them for a magazine. And that was super cool to get to actually sit and converse with these people. Interview articles are a blessing and a horrible curse. The blessing of interview articles are that you get to meet somebody cool, right? The negative, and your name is now associated with them in a Google search and whatnot. It's fantastic. The bad is, we still old school record that interview, and then you gotta go home and transpose that crap. Now you learn little secrets. So I've learned secrets along the way. I have a recorder that has a has a timer on it. So when they say something super cool, I scribble down the number of the timestamp so that I know, okay, I want to go back, and maybe I'll write a keyword that reminds me what that story or what that answer was. Some magazine artists, so when I interviewed the mayor, because of all of his PR and press folks, I actually had to email all of the questions ahead of time. So I kind of knew what we were going to talk, what was going to be covered, and I had a little almost pseudo script for myself when I went back for those to do the transposing. So interview articles, blessing and curse.
You can get those recordings transcribed. You use software to do that.
Yes, it's true.
There is, if you want to pay for it, you can do that.
YouTube does it for free.
Who does?
YouTube. If you upload a video, it will transcribe it for free.
Well,
It's
here,
not always perfect, but most of the time, it's better than you getting a phone by yourself.
well, there you go.
No, none of it's
Problem solved.
It's like,
Yeah. So
I've got it installed in my brain for if I need
Do
it.
you?
Like
yeah.
10,000 words. I don't want to.
You said
That's great.
YouTube does it?
Yeah.
YouTube, yeah, it will transcribe
Yeah.
whatever video you put up.
Because
I-
it's
I-
such a
video.
pain
Can it be
doing
an
Word.
audio?
Because I do
Just an audio?
dictate to Word,
Uh-huh.
and
I mean,
it,
you
it'll
have to have
stop
some words
every
in it,
like
Right.
Never
Yeah.
did it quite
2
right.
minutes or
A
something.
video.
Interesting.
Does it have to be a video, or can you just make a video of one picture, but then it has the audio, will they still transfer?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
So
It's
the
for
easiest
closed
way for you to
captioning.
do
There you
it
go.
is to create a private video,
Yes.
and then there's a little checkbox for transcription.
Uh-huh.
It'll automatically do it, and then it associates, I think it's an ASI file, but I could be wrong, at the very bottom of it. And so it'll have like the black with the white text inside automatically. Sometimes
Like
it
closed
takes a little
captioning.
while to get there. Closed
Yeah.
captioning CC, but again, if you've got somebody who's got an accent, or if there's background noise, it'll
Has
say all
trouble.
sorts of weird stuff. And
The hippopotamus ate the cantaloupe, and then.
But still,
So,
that's
right, so
a
there's
lot
some
of work
options.
done for free.
Well, and I will say, a couple of things. So if you do a telephone interview, tape a call. There's lots of apps that you can, buy, or some of them are even free, that will record that call for you. So you just listen to the call back. So that works as well. I will say, anytime you interview someone, hang on to that transcript, just like for taxes, for up to 7 years, because they could go on to become, they're going to try and be a senator, and something that you wrote in that Playboy article about them is going to get it. So they might come back and say, oh, they lied. This isn't what the, president-to-be said. And you pull out those transcripts and you say, right, yes, that, and especially if you save the recording, it's their voice. It's not even, there's always going to be scuffles and, oh, that's not really him. But all of my interviews that I ever do, I keep those suckers in a file for at least 7 years, so that just in case it comes back, I've got the original source material. As well, if anybody you interview gives you material, or even if it's not an interview article, any kind of article. So speaking of that, that is something that we will, one of the weird differences, and I don't know where it is on here that we didn't cover it, I guess it's because we didn't do these 2 sections, but sources. So you have to have sources for your magazine articles, whether it's something like, even on an interview article, I still Google that person. I still, look up anything I can about them. If it's an article, so my hummingbird article, I reference the, my brain's just like National Avian Society, but it's not, it's another A word.
Audubon?
Audubon, thank you. So I referenced the Audubon Society about hummingbirds. I also looked up some other articles about, hummingbirds, and looked up some articles about Houston's weather patterns and migration patterns. All of that you include with your submitted article when you submit those to your editor. So you have to hang on to anywhere that you took a fact or a detail, or especially if you use a direct quote from something, which you should never do unless you have permission from that source. All of that has to be source cited. So Shannon mentioned footnoting and whatnot earlier. With magazine articles, something you don't do in fiction or poetry or anything is you will have sources that you make sure and make note, and your editor will expect you to submit all of those sources to them so that they can fact check you, so they can double check your work. That is something to be careful of if you ever work for a magazine that doesn't do fact checking or does not ask you for your sources. Do not write for them. Because that is not a reputable company and a reputable magazine, and you are potentially going to get thrown under the bus when they decide that they want some flamboyant article about how Matthew McConaughey, did what exactly, and now you got, whoever coming, and they're going to, not only going to come after the magazine, they're going to come after you because your byline is on that article. So that is something else. But we don't have time to go over this, but, deciding if you want to be an LLC, deciding if you want to be a limited liability corporation, or you're going to stay as just a solo entrepreneur, because that separates. Now in Houston we have homesteading, so you're probably not going to lose your home, but if somebody does come after you, they can come after everything, right, for slander or for whatever. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind. I've turned down a couple of articles because the individuals they wanted me to interview, to me, were scary as crap, and I was like, no, thank you. I'm going to pass on that one. And so, yeah. So just something to keep in mind, be aware of. If you mention any stores or any businesses, so I wrote an article about kilt wearers, so people the kilt culture. Kilt, K-I-L-T. And so it was a lot about, tartan, and a lot about stores and shops in Texas where you can buy tartans and kilts. And I had, two of those people, places that were like, yeah, we don't want to be included in the article. It was mostly because they wanted to see the whole article up front before it got published, and my editor was like, no, we're not doing that. We're not running our article by, business owner.
Kilt. It's like it's not.
Well, and right, and it wasn't a derogatory article. Right. It wasn't like we were going to say this one rocks and this one sucks. It was just places you could buy kilts. Which one? It was a listing, a sidebar listing, right?
Did you call the places and ask them?
I did.
The editor?
In one of those cases, I did. I actually reached out to those places. In the other one, the editor did.
Okay.
In one of them, when I pitched them, they said, will you confirm that these people want to be included in the article before we accept the pitch? In the other one, they were like, we want this article written. If they don't want to be a part of it, we want to include them. You'll just have to write something else, find some other places, or just, change that part of the, of the article. So, yeah.
So we need permission there too.
Yeah, you need permission for everything, guys. Everything. Just general rule of thumb is permission on everything, because you don't want it to come back and bite you or the magazine in the butt when somebody, oh, I didn't know that, that was what you were going to write. And even if it's nice, sometimes they'll still freak out. So, yeah. So, longevity, number 3 on that Why Write Nonfiction Magazine or longevity. There's an endless wealth of magazine article ideas. So we're going to play one more game right quick. We're going to play I Spy the Magazine article. So look around this space. Find me the headline of a magazine article or a topic of a magazine article. Just start. Shout them out.
25 things to do indoors when it's wet in Houston.
Yes. Anybody else? We don't have to go around the table like round robin.
Mood lighting and commercial enterprises.
Mood lighting and commercial enterprises. Texas Living would love that article. Yeah.
River dancing, you wait in your car.
Yes. In a bikini. Yeah. No.
Chilling at 7-Eleven Heights Boulevard in the rain.
Yes. Fantastic. Sean would like that article. Anybody
Why
else?
the XT4 is the best Cadillac.
Yes. Fantastic.
Fusion beans.
Subway
How do you
tiles,
mix
cooler
food
out.
together?
Subway tiles, cooler out, fusion
Timeless.
beans. Right. So this is the thing. It's, people always say that there's a story anywhere, so fiction writers, there's a story anywhere you go. Sit in a cafe and, what's this little kid's story right here? Sitting here, watching his thing, while mom is working. There's a story about that kid, right? There's a magazine article, about everything. One of these bulbs is burned out, so great, an article about which light bulbs are the best, and why. They're everywhere. You cannot, literally open your eyes without seeing a potential magazine article, right? So there's longevity in this because, and I often say nothing is ever original. Somebody else has thought of it or done it. However, you can put your twist on it, and maybe somebody hasn't done it for Playboy magazine, or for wherever. So, yeah, there's just massive realm for this, so there's lots of room for titles, for articles, for writers, right?
Have you ever written an article that was too close to what someone else wrote, and so they said, hey, you copied or something?
So far not, but I am a hella researcher. So one of the things that I do in my research when I decide I'm going to, when somebody's accepted a pitch, the first thing I do is Google similar titles and keywords and see what's already out there, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to step on somebody's toes. A lot of writers don't take that extra step, which means sometimes the editor may come back to them and say, hey, this is so, even though you didn't do it on purpose, this is so close to so-and-so's article that came out 2 months ago in Esquire, we can't run this as it is. And so oftentimes they'll give you a chance to tweak it, rather than just, that's it, no, we're not running this, you're not getting paid, at all, kind of a thing. And that's the other beauty of magazine article writing versus a fiction writing. In fiction writing, the thing has to, for the most part, until you become Stephen King or Anne Rice, it has to be written in full before they will accept it, right? They want to see the whole manuscript. Magazine article, you're writing a pitch. You're writing a title and a summary, and that's it. You're not writing the whole 1,500-word article before they agree that we are going to pay you, right? So that's another thing that I love about magazine article writing. It can take me, 30 minutes to write a pitch, and what's the worst if nobody accepts that pitch? Because if I don't get it accepted the first place I pitch it, I'm pitching it to 10 other places that might also want it. So, and then if nobody at the end of that has accepted it, what did I waste? 30 minutes plus the however long it took me to submit it. So, maybe an hour. So, for me, that's worth it. That's a gamble I'm willing to take.
I want to jump ahead here real quick.
I love your paper, by the way, with all its notes. It's beautiful.
When I got my articles published, they almost always would get published if I sent a photograph with it, but if I didn't send photographs with it, they weren't as interested. But I don't know, again, this was 20 years ago, so I don't know how
So now we have stock photos, and most magazines are patrons of of those Getty images and whatnot. So they will oftentimes cover that for you, and not it's not as big of a deal. However, I will say my articles like 9 unique places to go in Houston. I agreed to do the photography for them, and I think that helped because I am local and on the ground, and these were very specific places that they had to have images of. It was much easier for them to pay me an extra fee to do the photography than to not have to go find. They'd have to reach out to the Orange Show and ask, do you have any stock photos we could buy? Do we need to pay for them, or will you give them to us for free? So me being the photographer, I was like, I'll just go to the Orange Show and take a picture, and so.
Did you have to get permission for that?
No. So that I did not have to because it's a public place and it was my photograph. No. Now, I do have an article that's coming out in Texas Living that is about the Houston art scene. Yeah, and I took photos of some art pieces here in Houston. Those I did reach out to. More as a common courtesy. I didn't have to, but more as a common courtesy because we are reproducing your art. To me, that just seems like, of course I'm going to do that because that, so yeah, just kind of fuzzy. So it is any helpful skills that you have, contacts that you have. So another thing, if you're going to do like an interview article or an article that what we call a feature, where it's a specific person you're featuring, that is helpful if you say, hey, I know this person, or I've already spoken to them and they've said yes that they are willing to do an interview. Because if you don't, then the first thing the editor's going to say to you is, how willing are they going to be to do an interview, for us? If you already have that information, they're going to take that pitch faster because you've already said, yep, I already reached out to them, got permission, which you do all of that in email. You do nothing verbally in this business. Because then if they come back and say, well, I never said I'd do an article, well, now your editor, as he said, she said, whatever to go on. If you have an email that clearly says this person agreed they'd be willing to do an article for us, an interview for us, now you've got at least, and can't change their mind, but at least you can say to your editor, look, I have proof that they said, they were willing to do this. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Sorry, we went a little around. The last thing is it's quick turnaround, short length. I can churn out, 5 magazine articles in a month, no problem, easily, and get paid for those, within 2 weeks. Whereas writing novels, writing poetry, you got to write the thing, then you got to submit it, and then you got to see if it gets accepted, and then got to wait for royalty checks to come in, and then got to, So this is a nice quick turnaround kind of thing. I think if there's any other quickie questions, under the extra tidbits, there's some more stuff down there.
Yes.
But yes,
Sorry.
yes, go for it.
You said quick turnaround as far as getting paid. You may have mentioned this before I came in.
Yeah.
But what's the pay? I see that's
That was
number 3.
One of our first questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it ranges. It really does. I will tell you that online, like Houstonia Magazine, I write for them. Their online articles, I'm not allowed to, I'm not going to tell everybody what I get paid.
Oh
but
my God, please, yeah.
You're going to online articles, you're going to get paid probably somewhere in the window of $25 to $75 max for an online printed article. Print articles, so articles like something that's printed in an actual magazine, it's all a range. It's going to range, my experience has been it ranges anywhere from $60 on the low end to I've gotten paid $400 for an article there, and there's probably way better ones. I just haven't crossed the threshold to write for, those particular magazines. There are other perks of magazine writing too, in that I was trying to find, this is my article in this one. I wrote an article on Nicola Parente, artist, your local artist, and it turned out to be a really, really fun article. But this is what is awesome. You go from it being printed, to this is what it looks like with my lovely name right here, and and this is my words, with these gorgeous images. So in this one, I did not do the photography.
Oh, someone went.
Mm-hmm. Someone went after me and took pictures. Yeah, for this particular article. This particular magazine, the publisher is an actual artistic photographer. So he actually does a lot, but I don't know who. It'll have a note on here on who took these. Photo by MP&P. So I think I hired a company to come take some of these photos. So financially, yeah, it's all over the board, and that's something you want to check for, up front to see what is this, what is this organization, what does this publication pay. So.
I have one little thing to say, which is when you get to the end, of what your portfolio is, I had written about art for years, but back in the day, and so I just had a thought, is anything still online? So I looked up art form, and yes, I can still find myself, so that's great. But things like everything I ever wrote for the Free Press Houston, 10 years of writing, disappeared.
So I
save your
will-
own things
yes.
and save your own either printed copies or PDFs off of the internet, so that it's not just, I wrote this article, believe me that this Word document is it. You have a PDF of it.
Real quick, this may or may not help, but if you are in the same situation where you wrote stuff a long time ago, you can go to the Wayback Machine and see if they archive what you wrote. And oftentimes, there will be an archive. I think they started that in like 2002 or something. So if you look up the Wayback Machine, like Mr. Peabody, it's basically an entire archive of the internet.
Yeah. From the old, So I have, so when it comes to portfolio, I have a printed, so I have all of my stuff. I, have a case of any magazine I've ever written for, which that's something you can request. If they don't automatically send you a free copy of the issue that your article is in, you can request that. And then for online articles, I have printed out every single one of them and have them in a binder. So I have printed out versions of them. But it's good also if you have some that are published online, because a lot of times they'll want to see writing samples from you. The best form of sending them a writing sample is a link, a hyperlink to an article that is published online, because then they know you didn't, it's not like you just wrote this up in Word doc and claimed it got published. They can literally see that on Art Houston's website, that article exists and has your byline on it. And, so.
What is lead and nut graph?
Right, so the lead and nut graph, so lead and nut graph. So when you write an article, different than writing fiction, your opening sentence is called the lead, right? And so that is basically your hook. That is you telling the reader what this article is roughly about and hooking their attention. The nut graph is the rest of that opening paragraph that goes on to explain how you're going to tell them about this. Whatever it is whatever you're writing on. So, Lady Gaga opening lead sentence. Lady Gaga is the best thing to hit the stage since sliced bologna. And then the rest, it's horrible, but and then the rest, is going to be the, what that article, kind of you expanding on what that article is going to be about. Let me see what I wrote for Nicola's. Over the past few years, I've interviewed dozens of amazing individuals for magazine articles and social media features. However, none of these encounters have affected me as much as my interview with artist Nicola Parente. That was my lead, right? So that is the kickoff of this article. So it tells you it's a very personal article, and it tells you who I'm going to talk about and why I'm talking about them. The rest of my nut graph, a quickening of my pulse, spinal cord tingling, and smiles of recognition were brought on aplenty during our afternoon of conversation. The order of the day as I toured the home of this fascinating artist and listened to nuggets of his adventurous life story was connection. Yeah, sorry. So, I know. Okay, so as I toured the home of this fascinating artist and listened to nuggets of his adventurous life story was connection. So it tells you that this article is not only going to be about Nicola Parente, but it's going to be about us and how we connected as individuals. But that's what lead and nut graph are. They're just two terms for your opening sentence and your opening paragraph.
I wanted to ask you, does he still live downtown Houston?
He does.
Because years ago when I lived at the Rice Hotel, they had a Heights. They had one of those when the houses are open, an open house where you go to all the different homes. And I rented his apartment and met him and talked to him about writing.
Well, he has a whole house now. He has a compound now.
Oh,
yeah.
In the same building.
Yeah. No, it's an independent building. So there's a picture of his home right there.
Oh, well, I didn't meet him there. I met him in his downtown apartment, but that's been years ago, so he's probably moved on.
So I want to say, I know that Jody has a limited amount of time, so I'm not saying you can't ask her questions, but I'd love to give her a round of applause because she brought in all